Alright, so I've been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals lately. I've been having a lot of fun with it. And the triple support has been coming up. It even came up in a Reddit thread today. One of the top upvoted on the subreddit. And I think there's a couple reasons why this is happening so fast. But I just kind of wanted to talk about it from my experience in Overwatch, what they could potentially do, that kind of thing. I just feel like yapping about it. As far as, like, why me yapping about it could matter at all. In Overwatch, I won a couple very small tournaments, nothing special. I was rank 1 for a while what was it? It was 4694, I think was the peak SR that I was at in that game. Never cracked 4700, always bothered me. But I was decently high ranked. I was ranked 1 on the ladder. I think Boostio was eventually the guy that actually beat me at that rank. And then I never climbed past it because I just solo queued. But regardless of that, I just said that as of, like, why my opinions might have some validity to them, or maybe you say that guy's washed up and stupid, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That's fine. But we're mainly talking about the triple support meta, which is 2 tanks, 1 DPS, and 3 support. This could go back to the whole GOATs thing, which a lot of people heard and talked about GOATs and mentioned GOATs. Whether you know it or not, GOATs is 3 tank, 3 support. Back from Overwatch, that was very popular. It essentially covered all weaknesses. It was very strong, and was beating everything. It was called GOATs Comp, and they changed the game fundamentally to fight back against it. And this is what I would kind of consider the at least early on GOATs of this game, being 3 tank, 2 DPS, 2 tanks, 3 supports, 1 DPS, mainly because the DPS actually do have a very special role in the composition and why you pick them. But let's go over the characters that are played, why they're not. But it all revolves around the fact of support ultimates. Everything revolves around support ultimates. And it's because these support ultimates essentially make you, I wouldn't say, it's not immune, but the raw health per second that these support ultimates do essentially make your team immortal while they're active. And that's a pretty significant problem, especially when you can pick multiple of them. What'll end up happening is you can have fights where both teams are trading support ultimates to the point where all support ultimates on both sides are traded. Potentially nobody dies, and you're fighting in team fight for another potentially 2 minutes until you maybe get another set of support ultimates. And this can just happen a lot. And you see it happen quite a bit in higher rank lobbies. But I think the reason why it's trickling down to the lower ranks so much is just how metagame stuff is now. People will simply just pick up on what's meta. That information will be traveled across. People will watch streams. People will see it happen, see its effectiveness. And that thing will just rampantly go from just a problem for the 0.1 percenters, just all the way down. As far as my rank in this game currently, I'm mid-diamond 2, but I solo queue, and if you don't queue with other people, it's very fucking up in the air whether or not you're winning games right now. After the rank reset, it was I think the rank reset was a bit of a mess. Just because forcing no bans again, which is terrible. I think bans should be added to Gold Plus, but that's besides the point. Cloak and Dagger, Invisible Woman, Luna Snow, and Mantis. All of these characters have AoE support ultimates that provide such high HPS that you essentially need to one-shot the characters within these ultimates to kill them, to progress a team fight. Because if they do not die, the team fight is basically at a standstill for both sides, since the other side will also use a support ultimate in retaliation to yours. The reason, like I said before, the reason being is the HPS is literally so high that you cannot die in them. So what has this devolved into for the tank setup? The tanks, so you'll normally see these 4 characters, but you'll also see Loki quite a bit, just because Loki does, just because Loki copies one of their ultimates, Loki is essentially another AoE support ultimate. If, let's say, Luna and Mantis are banned, or if for some reason 2 out of these 4 supports are banned, you can put Loki in, and that's just another AoE support ultimate. Rocket does have a place as well. One thing that this character can do is, because of these team fights, what you're eventually doing is just using ultimates over and over to try and one-shot one of these support characters, or try and one-shot somebody to get an advantage in the team fight overall. What Rocket can actually do, interestingly enough, is if you use a support ultimate, and then the enemy team uses multiple ultimates to kill that support, to stop their ultimate, Rocket can res them, and then you're just back to 3 support versus 3 support, and the ultimate economy is kind of... It's very weird. Rocket's definitely more of a niche pick, I would say, than putting Loki into the roster, just because Loki can add that extra support. Loki's also flexible in potentially adding a DPS or tank support, potentially, depending on the situation. But Rocket does have a small place in there. And that kind of leaves Jeff and Adam Warlock. Jeff's ultimate doesn't really do anything. Jeff has decent healing. But Jeff, because it has a Q that does not keep your team alive, is essentially not valuable. So all of these are devaluing Jeff. Adam Warlock is interesting, where it's like, yeah, he can get value from his ultimate. You kill someone, they come back to life. But realistically, if you're running 3 support ultimates, one of the problems is that you can use those support ultimates to push into where Adam Warlock's beacon is, like with Cloak and Dagger, and then then the beacon means nothing. You are then up an entire support ultimate versus the enemy team because you are fighting on their beacon, insta-killing anyone that reses, and then it just doesn't. His beacon just doesn't matter. The other problem being, if you are trading support ultimates and then Adam Warlock beacons in the back. After that, it means that your team is fighting down all of their support ults. It's fighting down a support ultimate, and then they have to not only revive, they only revive with 100 health, so they have to revive and then fully heal and then reset back into the fight where they've probably lost positions. Adam Warlock is an interesting character, and he does quite a bit of damage, but he can have a good position within like this triple support thing, but I think that because his ultimate is just worse than an actual AoE support ultimate, it kind of falls behind. Maybe it'll have some use against like a specific composition that's built around something, where like you can force them to use ults to wipe your team, but then your team can come back with all support ultimates. It's like maybe the first thing that needs to be used. I'm not sure, but because it has not an AoE Immortal ult, it's essentially not very useful. Going on to the tanks, people are playing Strange, Groot, and Magneto for a couple of reasons. Mainly, Magneto and Strange have the ability to team wipe or force the enemy support ults by themselves. Magneto, especially against a character like Cloak and Dagger, who's very immobile during her ult, has the ability to just ult and one-shot a support. I'm coming back into this idea that you either have to one-shot somebody with your ultimate, or you have to one-shot somebody with the support ultimate, or you have to like out-engage them, or sustain them, essentially. Magneto can throw that into flux. He can kill Luna, he can kill Mantis, he can kill Cloak very easily. He can even kill Invisible Woman inside of her ult. Where sometimes, even as Invisible Woman, you put the ult down, and then you personally go invisible and just hide. So your ultimate doesn't instantly get removed by Magneto killing you with his ultimate. Doctor Strange ult is self-explanatory. It has the chance to... It not only forces the enemy support ultimates, but if they miss position, it has the chance to wipe an entire team by himself. Very, very valuable. And Groot has groups everybody, and allows you to stack DPS to the point where you might be able to kill through a support ultimate because they aren't moving in their one place. And more importantly, Groot allows you to combo an entire enemy team, or enough of an enemy team, with a DPS ultimate to instantly kill them to where their support ultimates don't matter, letting you use no support ultimates potentially, while you use a DPS and a tank ultimate to completely wipe their support ultimates off the map. So there is some kind of like functional play in there. The other main reason these characters are important to pick is because they have the ability to protect themselves. The reason why the triple support meta isn't really being beaten by a lot of things, it can probably be beaten by a very coordinated dive composition, but when you're playing in pugs, and especially when you're playing in ranked, the reason why these characters are very good is because they can protect themselves. Even though you can break Root's walls, it will give your team enough time after him putting a wall up that you can heal him from essentially 0 HP back to full, almost like that, instantly resetting that sort of tank brawl that you're dealing with. Same thing with Strange with his shield, same thing with Magneto with his shield and his bubble. Magneto is very, very strong and fits very well into this current meta because his ability to one-shot, his ability to bubble to protect against enemy one-shots, and because he has a shield himself to soak damage, allowing him to be re-healed to start brawling again. I would argue Magneto is probably... He's stronger than Groot. I don't really necessarily think he's stronger than Doctor Strange because of what Strange can actually do, but Magneto is crazy, crazy strong. So what we have left is the DPS slots. What would you pick for this kind of composition? Well, we're looking at things that essentially one-shot, right? So you're looking at Moon Knight, which can one-shot with Groot. You're looking at Namor, which can these two ultimates can one-shot by themselves. You're looking at Iron Man, which can one-shot. Scarlet Witch is weird. Technically, on paper, this character is good against this kind of composition because they pop ultimates. It allows you pop an ultimate, you pop your ultimate, and then anyone hiding in a support ultimate dies, is the theory. But in the reality of this situation, if you pop Scarlet Witch and they have like a Magneto, Magneto just ults you, and you're dead. Your ult doesn't matter. Now you're dead. You're out of the playing field. Like Cloak, you're very slow, very easy to hit. It is a very conditional pick, has potential, but it's only because of her ultimate. It actually takes a while, a decent chunk of time for her to get her ultimate as well. So she'll probably get her ultimate during the support ultimate and brawl exchange, but you probably aren't getting it as fast as you would like compared to these other characters, which can farm them very quickly. Then you have Hawkeye. Hawkeye is very interesting in this meta because what Hawkeye can do is instantly one-shot anything that's not a tank, even inside the support ultimate. So Hawkeye's actually still very, very valuable, and especially when you're in these confined spaces where you're brawling around these support ultimates, the nerfs that were done to this character to reduce his ranged one-shot potential do not count. So Hawkeye really has potential, but he's actually quite hard to get headshots with to insta-kill people. So you have to be pretty good with this character compared to something like a Moon Knight or a Namor where you have this big AoE ultimate. Namor's a little harder because it's a small circle that you have to hit. But then I think these characters are a little more interesting between Winter Soldier and Wolverine. Storm... Here, I'll talk about Storm and Star-Lord first. Star-Lord and Storm just put out a lot of damage, provide your team... Star-Lord is very safe. Storm provides your team with a lot of utility, damage boost, movement speed, that kind of thing. Storm can also farm ult very quickly. It is possible for Storm inside of a support ultimate fight to cycle 2 ultimates within the same fight fast enough that the enemy team can't get their support ultimate back. So it's one of the reasons why this character is banned a lot of the time. She's very strong, builds ult very quickly because her shots pierce, because everybody's clumped up. She gets a ton of value, and is generally fairly safe. Especially against single DPS, and especially considering most of the single DPS you're playing are like Moon Knight and Namor, so it makes it even harder to kill this character. Star-Lord is interesting, where this character is pretty good at like forcing enemy ultimates. He's not really going to get a lot of kills outside of mispositioning, but his ability, once again, to farm his ultimate very fast in these brawl areas allows him to potentially out-farm his ultimate before the enemy team can get their support ultimates back, which makes him pretty valuable. But Winter Soldier and Wolverine, I think, are far more interesting, where they don't necessarily kill through damage or their ultimates. Most of their kills come through displacement. Winter Soldier and Wolverine, Winter Soldier through his hook, and Wolverine through his ultimate, and through his kidnap, his shift ability, have the ability to take somebody and remove them physically from an enemy support ultimate, allowing you to kill them because they are not inside that support ultimate. And if you do hook someone, let's say you hook someone very important, like you can hook a Luna or a Mantis or something like that. You might potentially force them by removing them from their current support ultimate to pop theirs, giving your team a far, far larger lead in the support ult economy there, allowing you to have essentially time where you're immortal and the enemy team isn't. And that's by displacing people outside of their support ultimates. And I think there's a lot of value in that, and there is potential in that. So all of those characters are definitely good for DPS. I do think Psylocke is another character where you're not... Psylocke and Black Panther I kind of put on the same wavelength, where they're not necessarily going to be a combo ability. They're not one-shotting anybody inside support ults. They do a lot of damage, but what they can do is they can force the enemy team to support ult through threat of death without pressing the button. And by forcing that, you get to use your support ults second, which is a major advantage. So that's kind of where I think all the classes and characters lie currently. I think Penny Parker, Thor, Captain America, Bruce Banner. I mean, Bruce Banner is very good, has a lot of health, and does also make Iron Man way, way better. So Bruce Banner is still banned quite a bit because it promotes Iron Man, and Iron Man can kill you before you can get support ultimates because of how much raw damage he does. That's why Bruce Banner is banned quite a bit. So Bruce Banner is kind of within this, but I'll be honest, I kind of auto-assume this character should be banned almost every single time because of what he can provide and what he can do. He's especially potent in the Brawl thing as well. And if you're playing characters potentially like Scarlet Witch or Iron Man that are in the air ulting, he can just jump on them and negate their ults. So, like, that's another reason why, without an ult, he can provide a ton of value in team fights, stuff like that. The problem with Captain America, Penny Parker, and Thor is they kind of just get shot at and die. Doctor Strange's shield regenerates fast enough. Magneto has bubble. Groot has wall. But all of these characters, I think Venom can work in, like, a dive composition. But all of these characters, as these other three tanks, essentially just get shot. You just shoot at them and they just die. They're probably like Thor after the buffs is probably performing decently well in like mid ranks or whatever. But realistically, you just shoot at them and they die. They don't really provide that much in like the grand scheme of meta of things. But we're talking about like hard meta, like in ranked, everything is viable because it's ranked. It's just uncoordinated garbage all the time, so it just is what it is. But what can they really do about this? Because they could go a couple of ways. They could do nothing, right? They could say, hey, you know what? Everything's going to be busted. It's going to be strong. It's going to be fun. We want people to feel things that are impactful. I mean, I haven't heard people talking about they should give Rocket Raccoon, if you're within his ultimate, it should give you healing per second as well as a damage boost. I'm like, bro. And everyone that's not playing a support is obvious, like, where's the AoE support ultimates if you're not playing one of these four characters, essentially, or copying them. And it makes these kind of characters unviable. I think it's very, very unhealthy for the game. And realistically, what's going to end up happening is at the higher levels, you might just kind of have a standstill, realistically, or you might try and one-shot people with specific compositions, because realistically, at the upper end, dealing damage just lets the enemies get support ults before you. So characters like I have fun playing Squirrel Girl, but characters like Squirrel Girl, Hell's Good does damage, Magic does damage, like basically anybody that doesn't have these AoE one-shot, like Punisher does, like Punisher does a ton of damage. But all of these characters, realistically, if you're doing damage, the enemy team is getting support ults faster than you, and then they just run into you in this death ball support ult style, and you just are 30-40% ult charge behind, and you just lose the fight because of that. And because you're behind, they probably only have to use one support ultimate instead of 2 or 3, because they're trading support ultimates, which then means that when you do get into the situation of the next encounter where you're fighting, you're trading support ultimate for support ultimate, and then those people that use their support ultimate first are able to get it back within that big brawl of shit, and then have another support ultimate for that fight anyway. it's very, very unhealthy. And the main reason why I think it will be changed is because it promotes you not playing the game more so than playing the game to play efficiently, and I think that's a problem. And I already said, so what could they do? I mean, they could do nothing. I do think that the AoE support ultimates, like raw HPS, like being literally unkillable, that needs to change. I mean, Cloak and Dagger 4-stacking a support... Like, here's the thing, right? Cloak and Dagger 4-stacking lines for her support ultimate, and she's very vulnerable to death without complete support from her team, from, like, Magneto or another one-shot ultimate. I think Cloak is fine. I didn't really think Cloak needed buffs, I'll be honest. I think the character was doing decently. The, maybe the character just needed, like, the right-click cooldown buff. I'm not sure. But buffing this character to 4 lines just makes it her ultimate last that much longer. But nerfing the amount of HPS you actually get so that, like, a character like the Punisher, where the Punisher, if he ults, he can actually kill people in enemy support ults, but realistically, they're moving around enough that he can't keep enough damage onto them for it to stick. So if all of these characters had their raw HPS reduced significantly from just their ultimate, because realistically, right, these people and these characters are living just from the ultimate. They're not living from additional healing sources. So if you're... So, for example, let's say Luna's ulting, but you still have Cloak and Dagger healing, or there's an Invisible Woman healing, and you're, like, shielding, and Cloak's got the bubble down during Luna ultimate, and you're healing through that because multiple resources are being put into keeping, like, 1 or 2 guys alive. That I could see okay, but it's just the fact that these ultimates by themselves are keeping entire teams up. Like you've probably seen the amount of Cloak and Daggers that will just drop their ultimate, and then for the entire duration of their ultimate, sit inside Cloak form and just do the suck the whole time. Because why would Cloak need to, or is Cloak, which one's Cloak, which one's Dagger? I don't know. I think Dagger's maybe the which one's Cloak, which one's Dagger? Skip. So okay. Johnson's Cloak and Tandy is Dagger. Okay. So they're in Dagger, they use their ultimate, and then they just sit in Cloak form the whole time. Obviously, he's got a cloak, right? Should be explanatory. But the fact that your healers don't actually have to heal in their ultimates just means that's how strong they are. But if you want it to truly be, like, godlike survivable, that's where I think that these HPS numbers need to be significantly reduced. And then, if you're healing during your ultimate, that's when it's like, holy shit, they're just being pocketed the whole time. But that's also why characters like Groot can exist, right? Why Groot adds value. Because imagine they drop the support ult, you're fighting somebody, and then Groot walls off their supports, and then you can try and finish somebody before that wall he used his big wall, before that wall comes down, and you get a kill. That's some decent team play. They might be getting healed by the ult on the floor, but they're not being able to infinitely live just by standing in it. Because it just... Basically, the problem is that the composition itself and triple support itself, because of how impactful these AoE support ultimates are, not only realistically invalidates... not necessarily invalidate, like I think Rocket has some chance. Adam Warlock maybe, but I'm a bit more iffy. Jeff, just no. But the problem with how this works is that normally you want characters to have strengths and weaknesses and yada yada, but with supports being this strong, you can only really play the AoE supports. It will, I think, make having interesting supports and having interesting ultimates impossible in the future if they continue to make AoE support ultimates like this. And realistic... Luna is kind of weird, where this character is almost, like, permanently banned. But unlike the other characters' ultimates, Luna actually can't do anything. Like, Luna can't physically heal other people while she's ulting. So maybe Luna should be the only, like, actual somewhat high HPS healer, but even then that just means the character is going to be permanently banned and no one's going to get to play it. I don't know. It's a very odd situation. I'm not sure exactly how I would affect it. or how I would do it. Maybe, like, you could increase the amount that is required to get ultimates. I know people are really complaining about Moon Knight right now, because Moon Knight's pretty strong. But the only thing that's really strong about Moon Knight is his ultimate, and if he can full combo you with his Onk. So all this character does is try and full combo someone every 10 seconds. Just farm for ult, and then try and use his ult to kill like 1 or 2 people. It is very strong currently, but characters like Moon Knight, Namor, Iron Man are the only reasons why you're probably, like, without these characters having very strong one-shotty ultimates, you would probably see 2-tank 4 support, more than likely, than anything else. Like, DPS would entirely be invalid, no reason to pick them. Because it's not like supports can't do damage. Their damage is fine. Like, Luna actually does a lot of damage. Loki does a lot of damage. Rocket does a decent amount of damage. Their damage is just generally a little bit worse than Duelist, but because they can still deal damage without the prevalence of good Duelist support or ultimates, you probably just wouldn't see them played much at all. Maybe Hawkeye would be played. Like I said, he has potential to one-shot people, but then I don't know. You could probably get kills with like a dive comp of like Psylocke and Black Panther or something, but realistically, the way it's probably like the way it is now, from what I've seen, Luna gets banned, Black Panther gets banned, Hulk gets banned, and then the last ban is kind of up for grabs. Honestly, you could ban Magneto, you could ban Strange, you could ban Psylocke, I think are valid bans. You could ban a second support, you can ban like Cloak and Dagger, right? But realistically, currently, it's Luna, Bruce, and Black Panther are probably kind of the 3 strongest characters in the game currently. You know, I got off topic. I'm sorry, I got off topic. But, I have rambled too much just because I like to ramble. But essentially, the TLDR is that the HPS of these ults are so high that they invalidate everything else around them, including tanks and support DPS ultimates, to the point where if you're not playing something that instantly one-shots someone from 100 to 0, you simply aren't playing an effective character. And as the support meta as this triple support meta evolves, you'll see more and more and more of it until it's the only thing you see played, and that's not fun, that's not interesting, and that's not what I want Marvel Rivals to be. Honestly, I want people to be able to play literally whatever they want. As long as there's like one of each role on the team, I feel like people should just literally be able to play whatever they want and have fun with their character. But as it stands, it is just because of the prevalence and strength of the AoE support ultimates, it makes it impossible to do that. And this problem, at least of right now, kind of is like a 0.1%er kind of problem. But this will definitely be, or I mean already even is, a lower ranked problem, and even maybe like a quick play problem, as I've seen Reddit threads and people complaining, all this kind of stuff pop up. I've seen a lot of complaints about Moon Knight before the triple support thing. But honestly, that's just because if it wasn't for characters like Moon Knight, you probably would not even run the DPS, right? Without this AoE insta-kill support ultimate, you wouldn't even play this character. I don't know. It's a very tricky thing to balance currently. But who knows? I am just one guy, and as one guy, I am Lord on fucking Black Widow of all characters. So, whatever, dude. What do you guys think? I've rambled on enough. I'm curious to hear what other people have to say. I just kind of like talking about this kind of thing because I played Overwatch for so long, and I can just fucking see it. I know how strong this shit is. And this isn't my traditional WoW content, but I just wanted to yap about it. That's it. I just want to talk about it. What do you think? I know people have been playing the game. How do you feel about the triple support thing? Do you think it's a problem? Do you think it's not? It's kind of hard to get a pulse on this kind of thing, because no matter where you look, even if I look at my own comments, there will probably be somewhat of an echo chamber of my own opinions there, because obviously people are watching me, right? So It's very weird. It's very weird, but this video is already 30 minutes long, and I should cut it. I just wanted to yap. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.